Happy Friday, everybody. Hey, I've decided to take the urging of another to do another one of these, just kind of something that's on my mind for those who are struggling right now with what they're seeing out there, and why I think that we have reason to decide that there are good things occurring. Today, just this week, which I don't, what day is this even today? I don't even know. The 30th of June, we have had some very interesting Supreme Court decisions, many of which many of us have been complaining about these types of things for, heck, I'm now like 54, and I don't know of a time where I haven't known that a lot of this stuff is ridiculous, especially to have been codified into law. So here already, just this week, we've had that the Supreme Court has ruled that businesses can refuse services to LGBTQ plus customers. And the reason behind that is First Amendment. Colorado's civil right law prohibited a business that serves the general public from turning away customers because of their sexual orientation. The person said that complying with that law would force her to espouse views that she does not agree with. The artwork that I create is speech, which we're told all the time by many many people who would oppose this ruling. The picture of a crucifix in a jar of simulated or not urine, but that's free speech because it's art. I honestly land more towards the side of it is free speech. It is a form of objective art, which I don't understand. And quite frankly, I know that you're just trying to piss everybody off. But the fact is, it is free speech. And the Supreme Court said you have the right to not support it. So this goes back to the whole baker decision on making a cake. Really, the whole point of the LGBTQ folks jumping up and down and having a fit is not necessarily that you in a very generic term, is not that you wouldn't make them a cake, or in this case, I think it was a website, but to ensure that nobody could. If we can't, then nobody can. If we can't, then nobody can. Well, yeah, that it's not really the way that works. If somebody else, you can certainly create your own website for that. You can't rely that somebody else has to. Further, another ruling, race-based affirmative action for colleges, not military colleges, but otherwise colleges, has been ruled as out the door as well. It's a 6-3 decision along ideological lines. However, I think it can be said that, quote, many universities have for too long wrongly concluded that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges, bested skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin, said Chief Justice John Roberts, writing in the majority opinion. This nation's constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. And in my elsewhere in my video channels, you'll find the Dr. King I Have a Dream speech, and I firmly believe that he's exactly right. I was taught as a kid to not see people as a race, as a color. Heck, I remember as a Midwestern young man watching Don Ho sing Tiny Bubbles on a TV show, amazed at the beauty of the women who were Hawaiian, and just the amazing Polynesian culture, and commenting that to my mom. Also, we have the Supreme Court ruling against the United States Postal Service. They tried to force somebody in on Sunday, and that Postal Service employee said, no, that is the Sabbath day. It's not the Sabbath hour. No, I will be taking that day to express my religious desires. And the Postal Service tried to force it. Postal Service lost. Supreme Court says that, hey, like it or not, they have religious exemptions, just like other religious groups, like perhaps Muslims, like perhaps Jews, like perhaps Hindus, like perhaps Buddhists. The Christian religion has the same rights and privileges as those. And the Supreme Court has said that that's true, and that that needs to be taken into account, and it's against the law to try and push against it. Also, we have the Supreme Court rejecting the Biden administration's plan to wipe away $400 billion in student loans for all the people who decided that they would get their 4-year or 3.5-year degree in gender relations and women's emotional studies, or anything along those types of ridiculous, just poppycock. Call it men's health. You can't call it men's health. Health is a real thing. Men, women, child, it doesn't matter. But men's emotional studies. Notice there's never one about there. I don't recall ever seeing a college course on men's emotional studies. Isn't that a miracle? Well, the Supreme Court said, no, you won't be just canceling out of debt, because quite frankly, I mean, let's look at that carefully. And you have to say, what about the person who paid theirs? I mean, is there any recovery for them? Or is it just those who are irresponsible that they get rewarded? And the Supreme Court said, oh, no, that's not the way it goes. Also, on the front of, once again, the government oversight areas of the world, the people who are trying to sue Trump, I will leave the link to this particular YouTube video. Robert does a wonderful breakdown of lots and lots of legal arguments. He is himself a lawyer, but amazing to all of us. We've all heard the recording of audio recording of Trump supposedly holding up. Hold on, let me grab some myself. Holding up a piece of paper and wiggling it about, and wait till they see this. By the way, that was a yellow one subject notebook that I just used. And he said some stuff, and somehow that leaked. Them claiming that because he said, this is because Trump said things in an audio recording, which of course now nobody has. But guess what? The Defense Department's memo on Iran was at the heart of the audio recording. It's not part of the charges. Why not? Why do you think that is? Robert goes into many, many, many other things as well. And for those who are still fuming about the Durham report, I'm going to leave at the end of this, I'll splice in part of a video that you can look up. It's Forbes, I believe, ran the video in the first place. But we have to understand, again, there are layers of reasonabilities, and there are also layers of protection. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not delude ourselves into believing some sort of a ridiculous thing. But there is an explanation, and Durham talks about it, on why there weren't more charges. However, we have to remember that while he may have understood it, according to his explanation in one way, that does not mean that forever that's the way it has to be. he has shown the map of where the things are. We know who, we know how, we know why, we know where, when. I will leave his explanation of that at the end of this video here, along with Robert's explanation here in the description. I hope everybody has a good day. Take hope. Take hope. You know what? We've got 4 really good Supreme Court decisions going here. These all are turning back stuff that all of us never imagined would be able to get turned back. Abortion is now no longer a federally protected issue. If a state wants to, knock yourselves out. Nobody's, it's just not federally protected, and it's not federally funded, I'm hoping. It probably is. It probably is. But at least it's not federally protected. And that's a big deal. It should have never gone into a federal protection issue. It should have been a states' rights issue. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg admitted that. It was horrible law decision as it stood. So it is what it is. I'm sure that somebody is going to pop me. Yeah. Anyway, so there it is, folks. I want you to take heart. I don't want you to continue being frustrated. Prayers work. But often the gears of justice turn exquisitely slowly, and that just puts all of us often in just a poor state of mind.
I want to quote from you a part of your report where you say, there are reasons why, in examining politically charged and high-profile issues, the office must exercise and has exercised special care. One of those statements you said is that even when prosecutors believe that they can obtain a conviction, there are some instances in which it may not be advisable to expend government time and resources on a criminal prosecution, particularly where it could create the appearance, even if unfounded, that the government is seeking to criminalize the behavior of political opponents or punish the activities of a specific political party or campaign. Could you just expound on that a little bit, this idea that there are prudential considerations that may counsel against prosecution, even if there has been some technical violation of a statute?
Sure. The standard principles of federal prosecution include, kind of as a bedrock, that you ought not to bring a prosecution unless you believe in good faith that there's sufficient evidence to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, and the jury will convict, and that a conviction can be sustained on appeal. There may be those instances in which you're pretty well convinced that a crime was committed and can identify the person who committed it, but you can't in good faith say a jury is likely to convict in this case. We believe that a jury will convict and that we can sustain it on appeal. Those are the principles that we tried to apply here, that we followed here. They're the same principles I've followed for 40 years as a federal prosecutor.
But what are you referring to when you say that there might be additional considerations involving the perception that you're criminalizing the behavior of political opponents?
Yeah, I mean, these are difficult things. For example, taking this case, I think all the members of the committee have had access to, whether they took advantage or not, I don't know, but we filed a classified appendix here, right? So there are some prosecutions where it may very well be that it looks like, and you think you can prove the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, but because of the classified nature of much of your evidence, it's never going to see the light of day. So that might preclude a prosecution. Things of that sort come up that are part of the prudential judgment that a prosecutor has to make in these matters.
I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back. The committee will take a short break, short recess. If we can come.
Let's not allow ourselves to have that poor state of mind. Everybody, have yourselves a great weekend. I will see you tomorrow, and then we're off to the Sabbath.